Oke, selamat sore teman-teman AECC Global. Selamat datang di live session kita hari ini, hari Selasa, tanggal 12 Oktober 2021. Nama saya Lani, saya yang akan menjadi host pada hari ini. Dan together with me, we have Michelle Duncan from Robert Gordon University. And she is the Regional Manager for Africa, South Asia, and Southeast Asia of Robert Gordon University. So, hari ini teman-teman dalam kurang lebih 50 menit ke depan kita akan banyak mendapatkan informasi through this interactive session mengenai why do we have to study at Robert Gordon University bersama dengan Michelle live dari Scotland. Oke, belajar di luar negeri tentunya merupakan suatu komitmen ya, suatu hal yang sangat besar yang akan merubah hidup kita selanjutnya. Oleh sebab itu tentunya banyak hal yang harus kita persiapkan. Pasti banyak sekali hal-hal yang akan kita tanyakan pada Michelle di kesempatan sore hari ini. While Michelle is here, please use the opportunity to ask her so many questions, as many as possible. You can chat your questions in the comment box available. You can do it in English, you can do it in Indonesia, and then we'll translate it for you. And we will try to answer as many questions as you have. All right? So because we only have the next 55 minutes, without further ado, let me pass on the platform. Let me pass on the screen to Michelle. And Michelle, welcome to the platform. Please introduce yourself a little bit and also tell us about Robert Gordon University, like how big it is, a little bit of the history maybe, the location, the ranking, something that Indonesian students love to hear. Over to you, Michelle.
Thank you so much, Lani, and thank you to AECC Global for this opportunity. I'm so happy to be connecting with your students, and I hope that everybody is keeping well and is in good health as we navigate through these crazy days that we're living in. So my name is Michelle Duncan, as Lani said, and I am part of the recruitment team for Robert Gordon University. I have had the privilege of travelling to Indonesia a number of times to meet our prospective students, and I am counting the days until I can come and see you again. Now, I'm from Robert Gordon University. We are based in Aberdeen in Scotland, so this is a Scottish accent that you are hearing, and I know that some of our watchers today will not be so familiar with a Scottish accent. They might be a little nervous, but to you I say, don't worry, your ears will soon catch up, and by the end of our time together, this is the accent that you will prefer from all the other UK versions that you are already familiar with. So to tell you a little bit about Robert Gordon University, as I mentioned, we are based in a city called Aberdeen in the northeast of the UK. Now, Aberdeen is very famous for oil, gas, petroleum and energy, and that is one of the main areas of interest we find for students from Indonesia. But we're not limited to that at all. We have 11 academic schools covering everything from art and architecture through to nursing, engineering, computing, you name it, we've got it. All our courses share a similar kind of core fundamental purpose, and that is really to help you, our future students, get the greatest advantage into your future career. We never consider ourselves the destination. And I'm sure Lani's got some questions about how we compare with other universities. And that's definitely something I find a little different, is we very much acknowledge our responsibility to you. If you give us your time, your money, your hope, then we have to keep up our end of the deal by really helping you with your future, by making you as employable as possible. And that's really where our GU puts our focus. We are a modern university, and I think we'll chat a little bit about the differences between types of UK universities. So we got university status in 1992, but we have a history going back almost 300 years of delivering vocational education. So we've been doing this for a long time. And we are regarded as one of the top modern universities in the UK. And again, I can tell you a little bit more about how we have achieved that. And the final thing to say really is, I work for the university and I do it with great pride and great joy and great privilege, but ultimately they are my employer. So I'm going to tell you lots of good things about us. But something for your watchers to take confidence that what I am saying is definitely the truth, is that we are second in the UK in terms of student satisfaction. So that can give you that kind of reassurance that this just isn't somebody telling you that we'll change your life for the better and give you this kind of set of tools to have success. Our current students back up all those claims through our national student survey and confirm their level of satisfaction. So hopefully the combination of what our students say and what I'm going to say is really going to give those watching us today confidence to find out more about our GU.
Okay, thank you so much, Michelle. Wow, quite a lot of selections, different faculties, like 11 faculties you said, right? Mm-hmm. So out of those faculties, I was just wondering, and I'm sure my audience is also wondering, what's your highlight, especially for the international students? I'm sure there are quite a lot of highlights for the domestic students, but what about the highlight for international students? What's your popular program for the international students? Is it the same as?
That's a great question. And there's a lot, I understand there's a lot of confidence in knowing what current Indonesian students are doing, because that lets our future Indonesian students really imagine and see themselves at our university. So our number one most popular course for students from Indonesia, it's at master's level, and it's our energy management program. So that sits within our business school, which is the business school of the year. So the best business school in the UK this year. So that's where the energy management program sits. The reason I think it's so popular with students from Indonesia is they can really understand the relevance of it. There's obviously a significant amount of energy related operations and development within Indonesia. So they can see that return home and how relevant their studies will be if they want to come home and get a job. But also there's a real global relevance to, understanding energy management. So, you've got the world to choose from after you graduate. If you want to stay in the UK, which you can do for 2 years now as part of a post-study work visa called the graduate visa. If you want to transfer to the Middle East, if you want to come home to Indonesia, the energy management program in particular seems to really excite our Indonesian students. Within that subject, it covers two kind of directions. It looks at what the current situation is with regard to the energy industry, but it also looks into the future around things like energy transitions as we move from different types of energy sources, and sustainability, which is also a very important part of how we consume and access our kind of fuel supplies going forward. So the master's programs, all master's programs, but sticking with the energy management as an example, comes in 3 semesters. Each semester has 4 taught modules. Semester 1, semester 2, I should say, has 4 taught modules, And for the energy management, that includes things like renewable energy management, oil and gas economics, strategic analysis of the energy sector, technical innovation and commercialisation. So you can see quite a wide range of related subjects. So first semester, second semester, you're in the classroom doing your kind of taught modules. Third semester at our business school, we do what's called a capstone project. And again, this is all master's subjects in the business school, not just energy management or energy transitions and sustainability. The capstone project it's different from a dissertation or a thesis because we do it with companies. So it's our students' opportunity to work with live data. They effectively become a consultant for 3 months working with a company to solve the problem that they are interested in. It makes it a much more interactive learning experience than writing a 12,000 word thesis that at the end of it you're very proud, but it'll sit on a shelf and it will, it won't really advance your understanding of your subject in a practical way like the capstone project is designed to do. So that was definitely the most popular subject.
Right. So, Michelle, is the capstone project similar with internship, or it's also a different thing, right, with the
It's
internship?
It's different but has similarities. So we know that the number one thing students are looking for is interaction with future companies.
Yes.
So we do have a number of courses which include a true internship and, as I mentioned, the energy management program, but actually all our master's business programs have the option of doing a 1+1. So it's 1 year is your academic masters, as I've just kind of described in that structure of the 3 semesters, plus 1 year of industry experience. So effectively, it's a 2-year period that you're an RGU student, half the time academically, half the time in practice. So we do have the internship model like that, but the capstone, everybody has the option of doing the capstone. Not everybody feels they want to do an internship or they're ready to do an internship, but the capstone is included in everybody's course. So it gives you just that kind of entry into interacting with a company in a way that it's kind of academically oriented, so it's familiar from your studies, but it's also got a face towards working with a company, working with real data. So it's a really nice almost transition for students who don't quite feel confident enough to launch into an internship.
Oh, I see. Oke, jadi teman-teman ada pilihan ya. Anda bisa ambil master dalam waktu 1 tahun dan menyelesaikan MSc Anda, atau ada juga pilihan untuk ambil 2 tahun. Yang 1 tahun tentunya teori dan capstone project yang tadi sudah disebutkan oleh Michelle. Dan tahun kedua will be your industrial placement kind of thing, right? Untuk selama 1 tahun Anda akan bekerja di company yang sudah ditentukan. With this industrial experience, I believe you don't have to pay as much as the 1 year tuition fee, right, Michelle? If student decides to choose to do the 2 years study.
Yeah, that's right. So the second year it's a reduced fee. There is still a fee because you're still an RGU student. You still have to do an assignment. We still give you all the support and guidance that you get when you're on campus with us. So there is a reduced fee for that year of internship. However, the key thing, and this is actually a bigger kind of conversation to have, because people can get really hung up on the fees, and it is a real expense to pay for international student fees. I'm not debating that. But it's a really good conversation to have about actually thinking about your fees as an investment, so and the payback will come. So yes, initially it's a significant outlay, significant amount of money, but by choosing the right course at the right university for you, you will be rewarded hopefully by a higher salary or a longer and more successful career. So with the internship, as you mentioned there, yes, although there is a fee that you pay whilst you're on your internship, you're also receiving a salary. And the salaries, so the fee that you pay is around about £5,000. The salary that you can expect is, I think it's an average of about £20,000. So again, when you do that maths, you can see that it becomes kind of a cost neutral exercise, because your internship can effectively pay for your master's and your work experience. So I really encourage students to think about the bigger picture when we're talking about fees.
Right, and also also on the second year, students will be assisted to get the internship, correct?
Yeah, so at RGU, and again, this isn't just specific to our business school, employability is really in our DNA as a university, going way back to our origins in 1790. We were set up by Mr. Robert Gordon, who was a local philanthropist who wanted to help the local community have opportunities to change their lives through education. So right the way from back in the day, all our subjects have been aligned to particular professions. As I mentioned, nursing, architecture, accountancy, supply chain management. You won't find at RGU many theoretical subjects like English literature or economics. We're all about giving you the tools and the knowledge to get a good job and to get it quickly. So, and if you go on our website, if you come to any of our events, you'll see that we speak about employability. It's usually one of the first things that we say, because we're so proud of it. So we have built a structure at Robert Gordon University where all our courses are designed in collaboration with industry partners. What that means is, for example, a course cannot be launched at RGU unless it has contribution from relevant companies, relevant public sector, charity organisations. Most of our courses have a review every year or 2 years where that panel comes back together and tells us what is relevant, because things change. The direction of travel varies from professions. If we look at things like cybersecurity, what is true today didn't exist 18 months ago and will be replaced in another 18 months. So it's really important that we have that company insight to keep our courses relevant. It's also really important that we support our students, because it's tough. If you're a university student or a high school student coming to university for the first time, or somebody that's done a bachelor's going to master's, you've not done that before. So you don't know the right questions to ask or the right doors to knock on or what the expectations of you are. So it's really important that we have things like our placement office to offer that support. You mentioned there, Lani, to help join the dots between what our students want and what we know employers are expecting of future professionals. The other thing, you have to stop me talking because I'll just keep going.
Keep going.
Okay. The other thing that's a little bit different about Robert Gordon University than perhaps some other universities your audience might be considering is we're quite small in the scale of UK universities. So we have about 16,000 students in total, 11,000 who are on campus. We've got a really large online digital campus. Even pre-COVID, we had that. But so we've got 11,000 students on campus, which is tiny compared to some other universities. The benefit of that is we're much more a community and a family. So coming back to your question about helping students to get opportunities, our students are in a class of maybe, 40 versus another university where they might be in a class of 120. Very quickly, our students get to know the academics, the lecturers and their educators, and vice versa. So if we have opportunities that we think might be suited to an individual, then it will be a chat in a lecture to say, oh, you were interested in renewable energy. I saw a conference that's coming up. Maybe you should look at this. Another difference about our GU, and again, I think this is really interesting for students in Indonesia, is that we are a teaching university. We are not a research-oriented university. And I can tell you more about that, but I mentioned that just now because our academics are all what's called academic practitioners. So the vast majority of them have been in the roles that our students aspire to. They're not only academically trained, therefore theoretical experts in their subject. They've got a personal network. They've been in the offices or the oil rigs or the wards. And again, they come effectively with a black book of contacts. So when a student says, a fashion management student, for example, says, I'd really love to work for this brand. My colleagues in our School of Creative and Cultural Business have a chat. Who knows who? Is there anything we can do to help this student? And, can help facilitate those company links. So it's so much more than just our placement team or our career centre. It's our whole community will help support students try to get those internships and those opportunities that will make a difference to them.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it is very important for the students to know that even though Robert Gordon University is in Aberdeen and it's not in the UK, not in the big cities, but RGU is still very much attached to the industrial thing, because at the end of the day, you study, but you want to get a job as well. So you want to get the experience to get there, to get a good job later on.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Lani, sometimes our students, for choosing to come to Aberdeen, actually have greater opportunities than if they went to a university in London or Manchester, because they're competing with a smaller pool of classmates for the same opportunities. And then that layer of our academics, they have a UK reach. So a number of our students will go on placement to places like, London, Birmingham, Edinburgh, or so on. So you get the benefit of being in a small, safe city on a beautiful campus, feeling part of a real community. But you actually get the exposure and access to opportunities up and down the UK with less competition to get those great,
Right. Teman-teman, jangan lupa kalau misalnya memang ada pertanyaan, silahkan ditulis di comment box yang tersedia sehingga bisa kita bahas sambil berjalan. Then Michelle, you were saying about a teaching university, but some of our audience are future PhD students as well. Therefore, they really want to know about doing research at Robert Gordon University. Can you tell us a little bit about doing research at the university? I mean, how's the process? Whether, some institutions, they assist with research coordinator so that students can be facilitated to get a supervisor, but some big universities, they don't facilitate that. Students have to do it to find their own supervisors themselves. So how is it being done at Robert Gordon University?
Well, that's a great question, because sometimes we overlook research students a little, and two, actually going into academia and further research and so on, that's a really exciting and interesting form of employment as well. So it's not only about working for companies and organizations, or starting up your own business. Becoming an academic and an educator is a very valuable employment route too. And to that point, RGU, supports our research students with all the same things as I've spoken about in terms of that accessibility to contact, that support through networks, and so on. However, to kind of focus a little bit on the process of becoming a research student at RGU. Now, although we're a teaching university, we do have some very, very high quality research output coming from our university. It's just on a much smaller scale because of the structure of RGU. So the first bit of advice that I would give any student considering a PhD with us is go onto the website and have a look to see the type of research that we are currently doing. There's a lot of information about my colleagues, what they are researching. So from that, if you're a future PhD student, you can do a little bit of a matching exercise to see if we have authority and knowledge in that area, because that will indicate if we are likely to have a supervisor for you. So that's the first thing for your students to do. The second thing they can do, and as you mentioned, this is different from university to university, so this isn't a general piece of advice, but for Robert Gordon University, because we are that small kind of community orientated university, your students can contact a future supervisor directly with it can be a high level outline of what they want to research. It could be a draft research proposal, and one of my colleagues can look at that and give you an indication of if you should progress to submit a formal application, or if actually we don't, it's unlikely that we will have research, supervision available for that particular topic. So don't be afraid to reach out to us either through the links in the research section of the website, or you can submit that question to the general admissions team and they will pass it on to the relevant school and we'll come back. We do find it helpful to have a conversation in advance because it can save your time, it can save our time. So we're definitely a university that is open to receiving contact before the application, but I do appreciate other universities, much larger universities, for example, they can't offer that because the scale of inquiries that they are dealing with. But that's another little difference that RGU can offer your students.
Right. Okay, thank you for that, Michelle. Now, being in the pandemic at the moment, how's the teaching and learning being conducted at RGU at the moment? Is it still online, fully online, hybrid, mix of everything? How does it go?
Well, again, that's another great question, and I'm sure so many of your audience are just so unsure about what teaching looks like just now, what the future looks like. So I mentioned already that RGU has a massive online number of online courses as standard. So we're the third largest provider of online teaching in the UK, and that was pre-pandemic. So we have an entire digital campus already set up for our students that opt to study online fully because it suits their family commitments, their work commitments, or so on. So it meant when the pandemic hit, RGU was actually in a really fantastic position as we already had an online infrastructure. So the feedback from our students who were studying during the pandemic, and when we had to switch everybody wholly online, it was actually quite smooth. What we've gone on to do is that we've developed that further. So, our students, it was our second semester in January 2022 that started in January 20. That was our second semester, and we switched wholly online there in line with government requirements. That semester, we had a good infrastructure, but we learned some lessons. When we came to the September 2020 intake, again, we took those lessons, we developed, we enhanced, we improved. And every semester in which we have been having to teach in a blended fashion, we have kind of enhanced what we already had to make it as smooth as possible. So as I mentioned, we've actually got quite high student satisfaction for that, for delivering education at this particular time. We've also, I think it's important to say that my academic colleagues have been absolutely fantastic in that outreach. So they've done a lot of personal, tuition for individuals. They've noted if people haven't been participating, so they've sent them a direct message to check that they are okay. They've replicated a lot of the stuff that used to happen face-to-face. So for example, our School of Computing treated delivering online education as almost a project for them. So our School of Computing students can now tap into the server based at RGU, regardless of where they are in the world. That didn't exist beforehand. So there's been a lot of kind of innovative kind of learning for everybody over this period, which has meant that, yes, it's been different, but actually there's been some good differences for our students who have chosen to kind of join us. Just to confirm, Lani, for students who joined us in September this year, and are thinking about coming for January 2022, we're obviously still very very much limited by the government guidelines. So we do have to always consider those, but we are doing blended teaching. So we have face-to-face teaching for all our programs.
Right.
It's not back to 100% to what it was pre-COVID. We still have to have limitations around things like large lectures where, previously we might have 200 students coming into one lecture. We can't do that yet, but things like workshops, labs, tutorials, they are back on campus. And as soon as we get the green flag from the government, we hope that we can return completely to normal, but we're definitely progressing in the right direction for your students.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that, Michelle. That brings me to another questions about assistantship during the pandemic. I mean, is there any specific assistance that you provide students to cope with the pandemic? Well, such as, how the government implies to implement to quarantine student in a hotel, which is quite expensive. Back then it was like 1,700 something, and now it's about 2,020 something, 200 something. And some institutions I know they pick up the cost for the students through reimbursement. Is there anything like that? Or I know that some institutions elsewhere they do reduce the tuition fee by 10%, 15%. Is there anything like that at RGU at all?
Yeah, and I think it's really important to acknowledge and pay kind of respect to the students who are not letting this pandemic hold them back. There's so much has been taken out of our control, at this time, that I have such respect for our students who are saying, no, I planned to study overseas. I planned to, take this time for developing my education, my career, and I am going to do it. So anyone in the audience who is thinking about studying overseas, I just have to say, you are my hero. You're such a pioneer and you're so brave, and I have such respect for you doing that. In recognition of these, students saying, this isn't going to hold me back, we have our responsibility to help them be as unaffected as possible. So at RGU, what we decided to do was, we've done a number of things. So thinking about the financials and how we can support people, we put a freeze on our tuition fees. So our tuition fees are no more expensive than they were in 2019, because we appreciate people are perhaps struggling financially in a way that they wouldn't have been if the pandemic wasn't there. We also appreciate that things are a little more challenging by way of organising your finances, transferring your finances, and also what we are delivering. So that was one of the things we did to support our international students. Another thing we did, as you mentioned, we came out and confirmed that we would reimburse anybody that had to go into, government mandated hotel quarantine. So anyone coming from a red list country, we would cover that. As you say, it went up to £2,250, I think it was, a significant expense when you consider RGU's average tuition fee is about £14,000. To then find an additional £2,000 plus represents a significant percentage, of your overall fees. So it was really important for us, again, that our incoming students from red list countries didn't feel punished by choosing to move forward at this crazy time that is nothing to do with them. We don't want them to be held back for reasons out with their control. We also, for students not coming from red list countries, but coming from countries that did require a period of self-isolation, our university accommodation was available for that, and our colleagues we have a fantastic support team called Res Life, RGU Res Life. They put together care packages, they checked in with our students in self-isolation to make sure that they were doing okay physically, but also emotionally and, mentally. We did run quiz nights. We helped students with that. It's a big deal when you study internationally, and the first couple of weeks can feel really unfamiliar for anybody at any time. And I was an international student, so I really, for your audience, I know what it feels like. So it was really important to us that we effectively gave our incoming students a big cuddle, if you like, to make them feel welcome and to make them feel supported. For our students that were already here when the pandemic struck, and therefore lost things like their part-time jobs, which were giving them kind of a little bit of extra income and support. Again, the university helped with things like food packages. We allowed our students to be released from their accommodation contracts with no penalties or anything like that. We also have a hardship fund that our students can access. So if they, again, cannot pay their rent or are having financial difficulties through no fault of their own, we wanted to make sure that those students were feeling supported. So yeah, we did quite a few things. And again, it comes back to our students. We're a community, we're a family, and we need to look after our students, and we tried to think of every way we could do that.
Wow, that's incredible. I think that was one of the modern universities that do quite a lot of support for students during the pandemic that I've ever heard of. Usually, the modern universities, they don't do that many for the students. Teman-teman AECC, if you do have any questions, it's about time for you to ask. Okay. Do you accept students from HND qualification? If yes, is it possible to transfer to the final year?
So that's a really good question, and there's two ways to answer it. Unfortunately, not a yes and no. The key thing to mention is that, again, because we are a small university, never be afraid to approach us if you have an unconventional qualification. Because we will always consider it and we will see if we can let you in. The other thing is with your HND qualification, it is perfectly normal for students to join us. It will depend on which subject your HND is in, though, because we do have some limitations. For example, a number of our courses are accredited by a professional body, such as things like our pharmacy program, nursing, architecture, so the professional body sometimes sets limitations about entry points and admissions. So in principle, yes, we can accept HND students. It will depend on what subject. And the second part of the question is about transferring into the final year. Again, that will depend on which subject you are applying for. It's possible for some subjects. For other subjects, it might be that you come into our second to final year to make it a smooth transition for you. What I would just like to add to that to help, though, is we do give all our students coming into an undergraduate programme a £3,000 scholarship to help with their first year tuition fees. So whether you are a 99% scoring student or a 51% scoring student in your HND, you will still get that £3,000 scholarship to help cover your expenses. Oh, Lani?
Sorry. Yeah. Sorry, I did that sometimes. Yeah. Thank you, Jenny, for the questions. I hope it answers your question. Another question, maybe, if there is any other question. Okay, very special courses. Is there any scholarship? Okay, yeah, we're about to ask the same questions about scholarship. Apart from the automatic scholarship that you provide, is there any other special scholarship?
So for the PG programs, again, similar to the undergrad program that I just mentioned, all students will get a £2,000 fee reduction. So we will, on your letter of admission, we will give you that £2,000 scholarship. So you will see what you have to pay. You do not need to submit a scholarship application or so on. If you meet our entry requirements, then you automatically get the £2,000 scholarship. So that's one scholarship that is available. We do have some other scholarships information on our website. And if you go to the RGU website /Indonesia, you can see some of the other competitive scholarships that we can offer. But most students, it will be that £2,000. And if we can just stick with money for a moment, because again, I think it's relevant that your students add together all the different pieces of the kind of financial considerations. So RGU, we offer, very reasonable fees when you consider that we are the top modern university, the business school of the year. We have a graduate employability rate that's second in the UK. So our students far outperform graduates coming from much larger, much more expensive universities. We're based in the city of Aberdeen. So Scottish cities are typically cheaper to live in than the rest of the UK, and the same is true for Aberdeen. Where Aberdeen is slightly exceptional is that we have a very, very high rate of our students having part-time jobs. So most of our Indonesian students who want a part-time job are very successful in getting one. So we've got low fees, we've got an automatic scholarship, we've got cheap living costs compared to other cities, and we've got high part-time job likelihood. So when you add together all of those things, what you might find is that the RGU package, although on paper our scholarship is only £2,000, but the RGU package might be far more impressive than a university that is offering you a scholarship of £5,000, but their tuition fees are £5,000 more expensive, or your living costs work out at being a few £1,000s more expensive. So always a top tip I give students, and I know my colleagues at AECC Global do the same, is it sounds like homework, but do your maths, do your calculations, and focus on that bigger picture. The second part of very special verse question is with regards to our MBA without work experience. So at Robert Gordon University, our MBAs are all AMBA accredited, which means they do require work experience. As I mentioned before, sometimes when a professional body is involved with a course, they influence things like the entry requirements, and for the MBA, that is the case. However, our master's program, so things like our master's in business and leadership, which is like very much similar content to the MBA, but at a slightly more junior level, that would not require work experience. So it might be worth looking at some of our master's programs instead of the MBA. Oh, Lani?
Definitely you need a working experience for MBA, but if you want to do a similar course, but slightly lower program, a Master of Business and Leadership can be an option for our students. Right, thank you so much. Teman-teman masih ada pertanyaan, kita tinggal 10 menit lagi, jadi apabila memang ada pertanyaan silahkan ditayangkan. In the meantime, you were saying that part-time job is pretty easy to get, huh, Michelle, at Aberdeen. Okay, that's pretty good to know for students, because usually Indonesian students they are very much into part-time job just to have extra money.
Yeah,
to do a little bit more traveling, I guess.
exactly.
Because,
That's exactly what I say to the students. Obviously, when you apply for your visa, you have to show that you have your living expenses covered. So we know you've got your accommodation and your kind of basic food and everything covered from what you've supplied for your visa. But like you say, Lani, the part-time job can add a level of comfort. It can let you go and explore the fantastic country you're coming to. It can let you buy a pizza on a day where you just can't face cooking.
Watching movies.
Yeah, exactly. Go for a meal, buy an extra coat if you're finding it, the weather different, and so on. So it definitely brings that comfort. And our Indonesian students who come to RGU, many of them will actually end up working perhaps in, say, a local restaurant. So whilst not necessarily specialising in Indonesian cuisine, but maybe cuisine from the region. So what they also get is they get money in their pocket, but they also leave with a food bag. So they sometimes get their meal covered as well. So again, saving, meeting people, getting a taste of home. So yeah, that's quite a popular part-time job for our students from Indonesia.
Yeah, and it's pretty smart as well, with the food package and everything, right? What about accommodation, Michelle? A little bit about accommodation. How low can it go for students to stay at Aberdeen in terms of rent?
Yeah,
Because
great.
most of the money goes to the rent.
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I always answer it by saying that there's something for everybody. So at our university, we do not enforce that you stay in university accommodation. We do encourage it because there's lots of benefits. You can organise it from Indonesia. You can it includes all your bills, like your heating, your electricity, your internet. It puts you in the middle of a group of other people who are also students, so you've got instant friends. So there's lots of benefits of choosing university accommodation. But some students, particularly if they're coming for a postgraduate program, so a little bit older, have perhaps lived independently before, maybe they're bringing family, they want to look at private accommodation,
Yeah.
and that's widely available as well. The only thing that I would say if you're looking at private accommodation is remember the advertised price is typically without bills. So you've then got to add your electricity, your heating, your internet, and so on to the price that you see. But at Robert Gordon University, we have a support team that will help our students looking for private accommodation as well. So they will look at your contract. So never sign an agreement until you have taken it to the accommodation office to make sure that there's no hidden clauses or anything in your agreement, a private agreement. We have some resources where we can share with you people that are looking to share apartments, or have a room available in an apartment and they're looking for other students to join them. So we do try and support our students that are thinking about private accommodation as well as those. And to answer about the price, it's actually quite equal at the moment. So it's easy in Aberdeen to find quite a cheap private accommodation, but do remember you have to put those bills on top of it, and it's better to see it face to face or to at least get a virtual tour or something, because unfortunately we know the internet lies. So you don't want to put all your hope in something without calling upon the resource that RGU can help, just to give you that confidence that actually that picture that you're seeing on the internet is actually what is behind the door that you're now paying for. So let us help you in that way as well.
Okay, my last question would be, because we only have 5 minutes left, my last question would be the student community during the pandemic. I mean, is there any popular Indonesian community or Southeast Asian community, or whether, usually institutions have, universities have clubs and, different kind of communities within the university. How does it still run, or how does it, I'm sure there are some communities that still go online.
Oh, absolutely. And actually, that helps me make a point that I didn't want to forget. And we almost have reached time without me saying it, which is by choosing to come to a Scottish university like RGU, but also, my colleagues at other Scottish universities would say the same, is there's research that shows that students who choose a Scottish university over a university in the rest of the UK are far more satisfied by their experience. And that satisfaction is linked to things like feeling welcome, feeling safe, feeling included. And again, that's not just me telling you good things, it's actually based in research. So it's really exciting when people tell me that they want to come to study in Scotland, because we are so excited to welcome and embrace international people as part of our cities and our culture, and so on. Speaking specifically about RGU in Aberdeen, because of the connections that RGU Aberdeen has to the energy industry. Although it's a small city and it could fit in the pocket of Jakarta, it is so small compared to some of the cities in Indonesia. It's a very diverse community because it welcomes people from all over the world because they are stationed here because they work in the energy industry. As a result of that, it means that we've got numerous mosques and places of worship, including on campus. We've got lots of international supermarkets and restaurants, so you can get that taste of home. So although it's a small scale location, that kind of welcome and feeling part of something is hopefully quite instant. It's very easy to connect with other people from Indonesia or from Southeast Asia through things like the supermarkets, the restaurants, the clubs and societies that we have, as well as for you to be part of other activities out away, because many of your audience today, they're going to know quite a lot of Indonesian people already. So they might want to use this opportunity to also get to connect with other kind of cultures and nationalities. And again, that can be done through the, through things like the Students' Union, as well as just, saying hello, walking down the street, not being afraid to kind of ask questions, ask for help. So I'm sure your students will be rewarded if you choose to come to Scotland. Just by our nature, you're going to have that kind of extra special experience.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I think we have come up to the end of the sessions, teman-teman.
It was so quick.
I know.
Thank you for all the fantastic questions.
It is. Thank you. Teman-teman AECC, jangan lupa based on research, mereka yang belajar di Scotland katanya mendapatkan satisfaction yang lebih dibandingkan dengan mereka yang belajar in other parts of the UK. So you may want to confirm your decision and study at Robert Gordon University through AECC. Caranya mudah sekali, Anda tinggal menghubungi kanseler Anda, kemudian mengumpulkan dokumen yang diperlukan, nanti kanseler Anda akan bantu untuk mendaftarkan ke Robert Gordon University, tentunya bantu untuk mendapatkan letter of acceptance yang diperlukan, kemudian kanseler Anda juga akan bantu untuk accept the offer for you. Oleh sebab itu, jangan lupa hubungi kanseler Anda di AECC Global. Dan last but not least, I'd like to thank Michelle for being in the platform today. Also, I would like to thank all the AECC friends who've been watching the session. Jangan lupa juga kita ada virtual education fair mulai dari tanggal 15 untuk universities di Indonesia, di Singapura, Malaysia, Jerman, Amsterdam. Kemudian untuk tanggal 16 Januari untuk university di UK dan Ireland serta Kanada. Dan untuk tanggal 17 Oktober university di Australia dan New Zealand. Jangan lupa ke website AECC atau mungkin Anda juga akan mendapat link untuk register dan mengikuti virtual education fair AECC Global di bulan Oktober ini. Terima kasih teman-teman, stay safe and have a great evening ahead of you. Bye for now.
Thanks, bye.
That's the thing about life. It can be unpredictable, but your dreams need not be. How far would you go to make your dreams come true? How close are you to reaching those goals set by you? While others focus on a new normal, you focus on a new beginning. Look around for what inspires you. Build your narrative. After all, it's your story to tell. Take a chance. Take a leap. Begin your study abroad journey with us.